Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters for Anfield Index. We hope you all had a good Christmas. We hope you're enjoying some time off if you've earned it over this period. We hope you'd be quite happy because Liverpool are on a bit of a run at the moment, haven't they? They've won the last 3 in a row in the Premier League, but we'd be lying if we said that was the full sentiment. There's set pieces to talk about, Semenyo sagas. There's many things to get into. And I'm joined as ever by the renowned and the respected David Lynch. And before we get into everything, David, because I sort of joked about it last time, how cold was it for this Wolves game at Anfield, by the way?
Yeah, dreadful. We're into that time of year now, aren't we? Like into the back end of kind of January as well, and that will be awful. You just got to get through it, keep pushing through. And to be honest, it's even worse for me because I don't even get to have a drink to numb the pain. So yeah, it's pretty brutal this time of year.
Yeah, it is not the warmest. And you hoped you'd get football to warm your hearts. And we've got to analyse this honestly because there was parts of positives, but there was some bits that maybe didn't quite hit the mark. Let's put it that way. And I'll put it on screen, people, just so you saw it, because some of the surface stats, we had 2/3 of possession. We won the XG battle which is probably the story. We won the shots as well. But I'm actually going to put a tweet from you on screen, David, where you put, much like at Spurs, I think a lot of Liverpool fans, will come away from this game with a negative feeling based on the latter stages, both on occasions that could have been avoided by not conceding a set piece. They are truly dreadful at them, and something needs to be done. I mean, we'll park the set piece bit just for now, but in terms of the performance, a bit like Spurs, good in one half, not great in another. Was this Groundhog Day a little bit?
Yeah, to be honest, I actually thought a lot more positives maybe than the Spurs game because I thought they were really pedestrian at Spurs and got themselves in front, having not played too much football at all. It was a really poor contest. Whereas in this one, you know, they were dominant side. They were penning Wolves in. They weren't kind of giving much up on the counter in terms of, you know, the Wolves shots were from outside the box. They weren't getting many touches in that area. And Liverpool were getting into good areas. They weren't maybe creating the final chance every time, but they were getting into areas where you thought, that's encouraging, that's really good. And then, you know, the first goal comes, followed quickly by a second, and you're thinking this is a really good performance against a low block. And I know people will say, and look, hey, you know, I've not been scared of being negative this season and saying when things have been poor, but people will say it's only Wolves and they've got this record and they are dreadful. But I do think they've improved under Rob Edwards. You know, the Arsenal only just snuck past them on their home ground as well. And so they are a tougher prospect in the same way that Luton were pretty tough to play against under Rob Edwards. He is a good manager and he has improved them a little bit. So, you know, I think playing against a low block in the Premier League is really, really difficult. And so the way Liverpool unpicked that and the way they penned them in, I thought was really impressive and should be praised because those can be really difficult games. So that I had a lot of positives really around the game. And I think a lot of the performance, I still came away feeling there were some really good performers. Generally, some aspects of the performance were good. So a lot more positives, like I say, than maybe Spurs, even though it's definitely Spurs was a tougher fixture. But of course, it does turn on that moment. And I think a lot of how people would have felt coming out the ground or once they turned the telly off would have been negative because there was that pivotal moment and because it kind of changed the complexion of things from there on in, really.
Yeah, it did just feel like, I know it's an old cliche, but the game of two halves. And there was a great tweet that went out from Andrew Beasley as well, but this was quite telling, saying, the Reds have now been 2 up at half-time in 4 league games at Anfield under Arne Slot. They've lost the second half every time. And it is becoming a bit of a theme, but literally when that set piece went in, heads went everywhere on the pitch in the stadium a bit, didn't it? I mean, it was an awful second half.
Yeah, it was poor. You just can't really get away from that, really. I think what I would say is that it's probably slightly over-egged how poor they were in that second half. I mean, one thing fans will never say about themselves, they weren't helping at all. I thought that the tension in the ground, and you know, people are saying, why are the players so tense? Why are they kind of losing their heads? Why do they look worried? Well, look at yourselves. They probably feel exactly like you do. Do you know what I mean? I'm not to criticize the supporters who are obviously fantastic, but I think they're only feeling the same way you are. And so, we can't, they're not robots. So we can't kind of say, why are they feeling like this? And, when you feel exactly the same. And like I say, there was tension. It was palpable in the stands. So you're obviously a bit nervous because they've not been great this season in certain patches. They've thrown Leeds away. They have been weak under the aerial ball, and that's what Wolves were looking to do. And so no wonder there was that bit of nervousness. I think where they could have done better is kind of been a bit looser in the attacking third and maybe, kind of finish the game off. But, even for all the kind of talk about how good Wolves were in that second half or how poor Liverpool were and how dominant Wolves were, the fact is Wolves don't really create anything. They have, I think, basically kind of the end of the game with like 1 XG, I think I'm right in saying, or just over. And I think 0.9 of that comes from the 2 shots he had for the corner. I mean, that's double counting. It was just on Fotma, but so one of those should be chalked off really for me. But it was 0.75 for the one that hits the back of the net, maybe 0.15 for the header that forces the save. So when you look at that, it shows that for all the times they kind of pumped it into the box and everybody got a bit nervous around it, the reality is they weren't actually doing much at all. And so maybe we could have a word with ourselves about how we feel when we're watching that and be, it's just a bit kind of, we're harsh on the players in that they kind of saw that off completely, that aerial bombardment. And yet everybody was up the wall about it and pretty angry that it even happened afterwards. And you kind of think, well, we're probably not being fair there. They actually felt nervous, but didn't really give anything up outside of that one moment. So it wasn't probably as bad as it felt, to be honest. I think, like I say, the one aspect you would have liked to see Liverpool do more is their own attacking play would have been better in the second half. But in terms of what they did defensively, it actually wasn't that bad at all. And Wolves, they had aerial threats there. So I thought they kind of managed it pretty well.
Yeah, it was, and Nikolai makes a fair point there. I think,
that is a fair.
The interception that I mean, it shouldn't have even got that far. We lost about 4 50-50s, and we're like, how's it got there? And then Conor Bradley slides in. I think that exasperated it, combined with the fact that you said about we just couldn't get anything going attacking. That just layered in the way the football's been, and it was at times a bit boring in the second half. Just those things layered up, added together, didn't they?
Yeah, and so much of football as well is like it's about vibes and how it feels, and like I say, what you felt like when you came out the ground and what you felt like. You think about the Spurs game, and we said when we talked about it, it would have been kind of a really standard 2-0 win if the game ends on 83 minutes, and everyone goes, well, we didn't play brilliantly, and we were a bit pedestrian, but hey, you go away from home and win 2-0 in that fashion, you absolutely take it in the Premier League. But then, of course, what happens, and everybody feels a certain way when the game ends, and that's the lasting feeling you take from it. And very similar in this occasion is that Liverpool weren't very good in the second half, albeit not as getting hammered in the way that people are maybe suggesting. But that's the feeling that people take away. And so, football is about feelings, and it was about feelings in the ground. It was how everyone felt in the moment that was happening as well, and how the influence that was having on the match, and how the players feel. So, so much of football is vibes based, and the vibes in that second half were bad. There's no question about that. But it also maybe wasn't as bad as people thought. Trying to kind of cling to some positives, which I felt were there.
There were positives, and it is right to talk about players. But, I mean, I'm going to try and do this logically, but there's not even an elephant in the room. It's a herd of them, because the set pieces now, and it's almost, for me, it's almost embarrassing a little bit for Liverpool. I mean, that stats there now. No team in Europe's Big 5 leagues have conceded more set plays than the Reds this season, level with Bournemouth on 12. And Arne Slot post-match was even honest and said, we're terrible at the attacking element, and we concede a lot for it as well. I mean, it's just bad either way. Trying to be logical, but it's almost, we're talking about this every week. This is I don't know whether it's a systemic problem, whether it's mentality, but it's a massive problem either way.
It's huge. It's huge. And the thing is as well, is like, it's a game within a game. It works entirely separate to the football match. So, people kind of talk about Arsenal and like, particularly at the start of the season when they were winning games, like, wow, they're doing so well, they're playing so well. And you watch some of the games and you were like, they were basically just doing nothing. They were defending brilliantly. And they are fantastic at that. No doubt about the intensity that they play with. But then getting 2 from corners, and it's like, wow, a comfortable win there. And then they can, because then they're 2-0 up, it's easy to hit them on the break, and maybe they get a third, and everyone goes, wow, what an incredible side. But they're just so good at this one specific thing that he's got this outsized importance that everybody has seemingly realised except Liverpool. And it is so decisive. And I mean, I wrote a piece today for my Norwegian column that I do for the Norwegian Supporters Club, and kind of pulled out a couple of things for that. And one of the points was kind of around the fact that I think, basically Arsenal's set piece goal difference this season is +6 and Liverpool's is -9. That's a 15 goal swing between the two sides. Now, the difference in goal difference between the sides currently is 18. So 15 goals of that are comprised of this set piece thing that Liverpool are really bad at and Arsenal are really good at. And goal difference is generally a good measure of how good you are as a side as well. So all that's happening there is that Arsenal are, they are defending better than Liverpool, absolutely, but they're quite weak in open play attack. But they mitigate that with what they do in set pieces. And that's the difference between Arsenal being where Liverpool are and being at the top of the league at the moment. And that's, for Liverpool, that could be the difference between them being where they are and being at the top of the league. So, they are relegation level poor at these, and it is really dragging them down. And if they don't sort it out in the second half of the season, I just don't think there's any chance of top 4, because as much as the open play stuff is important, and Liverpool have got weaknesses in that, don't get me wrong, this just nicking 3 goals from set pieces would be absolutely huge for them, and not conceding every time they get one. And on the defensive end, they have been a little bit unlucky in terms of the XG versus the actual goals conceded. But on the attacking end, they're about right. And so that suggests to me that they are just not being well coached in that aspect of it, to be honest. And it just has to change. I mean, I don't know what that is. I mean, we hear all the talk about kind of, the position, the manager should do something. Well, it's kind of not within his remit. And people didn't like me saying that on Twitter over the weekend, but it's true. If you recruit a guy to do it, you've got to let him do his job, surely. You can't just say, well, I'm going to actually take these over, because you might as well sack that guy. And maybe that's a decision they have to make, by the way. But again, they might say, well, it's his first half season dedicated to doing this. Is that fair? Is that giving him a real crack at it? I don't know. That's the discussion they've got to have internally. And I do think we've got to be adult about it as well, and not say, like, throw the toys out the pram and say he's got to be sacked right now. Like, is that a realistic thing that's going to happen in an elite industry like this? I'm not entirely convinced it is. Whether, and it is half a season, maybe the luck will come right. Maybe Florian Wirtz could do better to pass that one into the top corner, that, the well-worked one against Wolves at the weekend where he pulls it to the edge of the box, the corner, things like that. Maybe that will change over time or whatever. But it's such a huge issue that they have to do something, and they have to get better at them in the second half of the season. There's not a chance we'll get in the top 4.
Yeah, it does feel that big. I mean, 15 goal swing against Arsenal as well. And you talked about, obviously, Arne Slot's not his remit, and I get it. It's Aaron Briggs. We almost shouldn't know that name, but everyone knows it in that regard. But you'll know there's that famous Napoleon quote, don't bring me a good general, bring me a lucky general. And whether Aaron Briggs is seriously unlucky, his role, it should be a red hot spotlight on him, shouldn't it?
Yeah, there's just no question, is there? Because it's his sole remit at the moment, and he has a set piece analyst working with him, and they are spending the week doing that now. Yeah. Did he get given enough time with the players to work on that? We don't know. Maybe they need more. Maybe that's not a big enough part of the week, and it should be. Maybe that's a massive part of it. Only they can know kind of the internal workings of it and what's going wrong, and whether they do think, Florian Wirtz shanking that one. I've seen a couple of kind of attacking set pieces that they've done this season that have just been let down by maybe technique in the moment. They've been kind of well worked, but maybe other sides put them away or whatever. And on the kind of the defending ones, again, they're conceding way over their XG, way over. I mean, Spurs have conceded similar XG and have conceded twice from set pieces. Now, that to me, that suggests there's a little bit of unluckiness, and then it's like mentality, confidence coming into it, all those things. But at the end of the day, you can only have excuses for so long, and they will know that like this has got to get better. So there is that huge pressure there, and I don't think they'll make a kind of rash decision in the middle of a season, but I do think they'll it's very much kind of, it's got to improve over the second half of the season. I think people, will be under serious pressure in terms of the job.
Yeah, especially if the Champions League is under threat at the same time as well. And it is right as well for when we balance this, people, to talk about some positives, because there were some real positives, especially individual performances and new signings as well. I mean, Florian Wirtz's stats were great on the day. And you saw he gets his first official goal, because obviously the one against Sunderland was an own goal. But especially the first half, he was just a level above everyone else, wasn't he?
Yeah, I really think we're starting to see the real Florian Wirtz now, and he's never been as bad as people have kind of made out. I never ever thought he was going to be a flop. There's been really good performances from him in this period, but it's maybe just not had that little bit of end product on top that would make people take notice. Whereas he's definitely had that in the last couple of games. I thought he was probably, the best player against Spurs. I thought he was again that against Wolves, and he's really starting to be the kind of the heartbeat of the team, which is what he was brought to be. And I thought he was absolutely brilliant. The little dribbles, the awareness of space, is lending of the ball, and then getting into positions to score goals as well now and get assists. It's just really, really enjoying watching him, and he's really starting to deliver now.
He is. And I suppose in terms of another new signing, you're just starting to see as well, we've seen it in a few games, there's almost a link developing more between Ekitike and Wirtz, aren't they? And it feels like Liverpool are going to enjoy any modicum of success. That's going to be key second half of the season.
Yeah, because they were bought to be a big part of the attack, weren't they? And so to see that kind of finally clicking and them getting a relationship, and obviously, the way that Wirtz sets up Isak at Spurs, Ekitike likes those kind of passes as well. And I mean, he plays the one in behind for him, doesn't he? That ends up in hitting the post. And then, of course, the reverse relationship where Ekitike drops, Wirtz goes in behind, and then you get a goal from it. It's just really encouraging, I think. And at the end of the day, all this talk about the tactics and this, that, and the other. We're talking about £200 million worth of footballers there, and you need them to perform at that level to be a good side. And Ekitike started very well, had a little bit of kind of quieter spell, but he's right back up there now. And for Wirtz, he's just been growing and growing and growing. And I think now both of them really showing what they're all about. And that's just massive for Liverpool, because players win football matches.
It's funny that you say growing and growing and growing, because there's been all the reports, and we've seen it recently, that Wirtz has put on, I think it's about 2 kilograms worth of muscle, hasn't he? And you can see it in his frame definitively now as well. And Arne Slot spoke in the embargo as well about how he's almost made, like it or not, Hugo Ekitike do the extra gym sessions, the fitness as well. Is there a part of you thinking they're actually now starting to get to grips with what the Premier League is, and that's why we're seeing the real quality now?
Yeah, I think definitely with Wirtz, because I think he kind of, you could see that, like, the physicality was the one thing he was really kind of struggling with at the start. His players being a bit closer than he expected, and being able to muscle him off the ball. But I've seen him really encouragingly kind of leaning into players at times already, and starting to see that he's holding them off. And I don't think that would have happened a few months ago. So it's clearly is making a difference. And then you throw on kind of confidence, just getting used to the pace of things, relationships with teammates growing as well as they spend more time together. It's all really, really important. And so, I think that's a massive part of it. But it's good that Liverpool have had clear plans for them, and that those are starting to pay off as well. And so, some of the criticism we maybe threw at them in the start of the season, they are, they're showing that it wasn't, they did have a plan for these players. Right. It wasn't just throw them on the pitch and hope it works out, or, think that it's going to be easy for them to come from different leagues and just jump into it. They clearly had a pathway for them. And I think one you can absolutely say, and again, I think it's something we've said time and time again, really, is that, I never felt that they'd made bad signings, and that these players would come good. And I think we are starting to see that now.
Yeah, that trajectory can continue. That'll be ace. And I suppose it is right to mention a few others to try and finish it on a positive. We'll ignore Chiesa not doing too much, although I know it all went down the left-hand side pretty much for this game. But Curtis Jones, and if we give a shout out to the right, Jeremy Frimpong as well. 2 good performances from them too.
Yeah, Curtis Jones at the minute, I just think he's kind of he's just really hitting a level now, isn't he? Of kind of, you forget how young he is, and so there have been inconsistencies in the past, and he's been plagued by kind of really minor injuries all the time. But he's staying fit at the moment. He's staying in the team, and I just think, I think he's just got to keep starting games. He's quite frankly, he's just a better player than Alexis McAllister is in this moment. And so, if you want that kind of left-sided midfielder who will, help build up, can get into attacking areas as well, then he is the one who should be starting at the moment. And he wins duels, he keeps the ball, he fires the ball into the final third, and just stitches everything together. He's just massively important. And then on Frimpong, it's been a bit of a strange one for him because it's been a difficult start with the injuries, and he's not someone who's typically had those. So good to see him back in action. But you've just seen in the last 2 how good a player he is and what he can bring. I mean, that first goal, we're talking about unlocking a low block and how difficult that is. He just kind of uses his pace, his trickery to get into a certain area, and then has the composure to pull it back for the finish. So, I think he's absolutely ideal for games like that, where you're up against the low block at Anfield, because he can unlock it single-handedly. And hopefully he can just stay fit now, and we'll see a bit more from him.
Yeah, whether that be at right back or on the right wing, it'll be interesting to see. And I did sort of steer it into off the pitch things that we normally talk about. The stick that Arne Slot got around the Jacob Murphy comment, didn't he? And I think people maybe missed it in terms of it's more a profile, someone who got the ball into the box for Vert and Ekitike. Do you think of all the players we've got, Frimpong could be the one who almost crosses it? He more gets the byline, doesn't he, and stands people up. But is he a player, do you think, Arne Slot could have had in his mind at that time?
Yeah, I think so. I think it just gives Liverpool a completely different option of kind of both you guys coming inside off the wings and kind of clogging things up at times, to have someone who will go on the outside. I mean, that's one thing you'd say about Conor Bradley as well. He kind of likes being on that inside, tucked in kind of a number 8 position when he plays right back, rather than going necessarily massively on the outside. So, Frimpong does bring that little bit of balance there when he's there. So I think it's just going to be horses for courses at times. But to have, that's why Frimpong was bought. There's no doubt. He's just an option. He can give you something. That might be as a sub in certain games. It might be as a start. It might be right wing, right back. But he offered all of that as a possibility to be an option at times. And he cost 35 million, and he can, play multiple positions, and he's homegrown as well. So it was, from Liverpool's perspective, a bit of a no-brainer. But I think, that versatility and the fact he is something different to everybody else is what's going to kind of make him a useful squad option. And we've seen that in the last couple.
Yeah, he does look so good. And for all the things that we'll talk about on Saturday and the player praise and all that, there was probably nothing more emotional, was there, than Jota's family walking on the pitch with Virgil as the kids as the mascot, the applause. You'll never walk alone being interrupted in the right way. 18th minute from the Wolves fans, 20th minute for us, and even the posts, all the things. It was a nice touch by the club the way they put it all together, but it was an emotional occasion, wasn't it, on Saturday?
Yeah, really nice. Obviously, just tragic that it even has to happen, but all aspects of it, as you say, with the kids being on the pitch and what a tough time it must have been for them, and just a real reminder, he's kind of a normal guy, and that he's got this family that he's left behind. It's not just all the kind of football legacy and what you think of him in that regard. It's that he's left that behind is pretty tragic, really, and. It was nice that the club is still kind of staying in touch and being able to do these things. I thought, the Wolves fans were absolutely brilliant about it all as well. And they played their part because they love him just as much as Liverpool supporters, don't they? So it was just a really, really nice occasion. It's just, like I say, just utterly tragic. It has to be that way.
Yeah, absolutely that way. And I mean, we talk about injuries, and I'm saying touch wood because we're waiting for more news, but in a little bit of a way, Gakpo's back, Bradley's back. Like Szoboszlai he's served his suspension, so he's had a little bit of a rest. That seems a positive. But then it came out last night, didn't it, about Ibu. So wasn't actually expected to be involved with the game. He's been ill all week and people clocked he wasn't in the training photos, talk about a hamstring issue as well. So all of a sudden you're thinking, well, Christ, we've only got 2 fit centre-halves. So we really need some good news on that, don't we?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, they are just kind of short really at the moment, and you know, to be potentially losing someone at centre half would be pretty disastrous, really, wouldn't it? So you just really hope that nothing comes of that. But as you say, the good news is that certain players are coming back. You know, you hope Joe Gomez. He hasn't really given us anything kind of, you know, really concrete on where he's up to. I really just hope that's not going to be too long away, because just to get someone back there as an option would be helpful. Obviously, with Endo is not expected back till mid to late January, and he is a centre half option, so that makes it really tricky as well. So yeah, hopefully he can just kind of get Gomez back as soon as possible, and then of course, you know, Szoboszlai is back from suspension, as you say, Gakpo back, Bradley back. It's starting to look a little bit healthier, but it's just have that concern, don't you, about centre half?
Yeah, we really need luck all round on the injury front. And I suppose this is not to bag on a player, but I think a lot of people are looking at this, and for all we've seen this season, that left-hand side is looking tidy at the moment, isn't it? With Kirkez starting to get to grips with it all. Curtis Jones almost drops between Van Dijk and him quite often to help progress it, allows Kirkez to press on. Of course, Florian Wirtz is sort of starting in the left. Yes, he drifts a lot, but looking so good there. People are looking at this, and I know Cody Gakpo isn't everyone's favourite player, but I kind of understand it that a lot of us are looking and going, just leave the left-hand side. It's one area of the team that's working, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd agree with that, to be honest. I think Gakpo's form's not been great this season either. I mean, one thing you would say is he's still a really useful option, and I don't think we could kind of completely write him off in the way that a few maybe seem keen to. He's definitely going to be big for Liverpool this season. He has been already. You know, they would have lost a lot more games had it not been for his goals, by the way. So, but I also understand, as you say, I think Wirtz is working well there. He seems kind of natural in that position, doesn't he? And I think it works with Kirkez as well. It gives Kirkez that license to kind of run that entire flank on his own, because Wirtz is kind of drifting inside, and they link well as well, as you say, and with Jones as well. So it's just working at the moment. So yeah, I think the manager shouldn't be tweaking too much at all, really, in the team, whilst they're kind of on a winning run. And they did play some better football in the game against Wolves in the build-up, didn't they? And certainly in that first half. So as they work their way through this kind of run, I think they've kind of got to keep as much as they can as settled as possible.
Yeah, you hope that would be the same. And obviously, Szoboszlai probably going to come back in for Chiesa, but we'll talk about Leeds shortly. In terms of this name, you thought I wouldn't be asking you about this after all the headlines, but last night, obviously, we get a bit more from the Nationals, don't we? That Mike McGrath in the Telegraph says Bournemouth are braced for a move for Liverpool to rival Semenyo. And also, we got the same in the Daily Mail last night as well, that Liverpool will have serious interest. Now, there's even reports again this morning, isn't there, that City looks like they're trying to get that deal done. Is there anything going to happen? Has this got a Luis Diaz late swoop feel for you? Or is this like, no, this is still just the agent, the club drumming it up type of job?
I would be surprised. I have to say I've been pretty consistent on that all the way through, really, as I didn't think Liverpool were going to sign Semenyo and never really been given encouragement. You know, definitely a player they've liked and have looked at, but in terms of pulling the trigger in this window, was never massively encouraged. I did wonder whether that might change with the Isak injury, but again, I'm certainly not getting that vibe at the moment. No one's kind of putting that idea to me at all. So I did wonder whether some of those reports talking the Liverpool interest up was a little bit about kind of hurrying Liverpool along a little. That's how it kind of sounded and read to me, if I'm being honest. Like I say, I don't think Liverpool, you know, it would be a big shock for me if they do go and sign him from here, because it's been pretty consistent. What I've been hearing is that they're not kind of in for him at this moment. So, and given that the Isak thing doesn't seem to have changed that stance, I think City are going to get a free run.
And I'm not going to say it's a new signing, people, or anything, but all the expectation, the reporting, still what you said before as well, expecting Harvey Elliott to end up back at Liverpool in the winter. But it's almost, and it's not to be harsh on Harvey Elliott, even if he comes back, he's never really been in Arne Slot's thinking, has he?
No, I mean, it will be useful, I guess, to have another option and a player who kind of knows the club and the system. And, I would like to think he would be integrated in some way so that he can, he makes the bench look better. There's no doubt, particularly at the moment with how stretched they are and the options they've got. Having Harvey Elliott knocking about, and someone who absolutely loves Liverpool, by the way, that would be no bad thing at all. So, I wouldn't be against him in being involved, and I would like to see Slot do that, is integrate him in some way, because he can't go on loan elsewhere, can he, this season? So I think that would be the best option if he can be integrated in some way, and as I say, I think that would help Liverpool as well. So he might not be starting games and be a regular at all, but he can pick up some minutes here and there to help things out. I would like to see that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would. It's just interesting to see if he gets used at all. And I suppose the final one, and from what we've talked about, you'll have clocked that David Ornstein does his deal sheet, and that went out, and there was a big section on Liverpool. But it essentially, long story short, I'm sure most people have said that Liverpool are likely to go with what they have now. And as I'm saying that, I know there'll be people in the chat panel going like, we've got 1.5 fit centre-backs. Look at Canate, we're short here, Isak, etc. All things we've talked about before. But I never like using the word briefing, but that's the consistent message that's coming out from the club, isn't it?
Yeah, I've only really been told, and again, it's one of the reasons I didn't really expect Semenyo to happen, was because, the kind of the feeling around the club and the talk there is that, they'd like to get a little bit more out of what they've got, which is to see Viet starting to perform in this way, to see Kirkes really settling down now and starting to impress, to see Frimpong play consistently and stay fit. Those are the things that have been the priority, rather than adding more players. And I guess, if Gomez isn't out for too long, if Endo is going to be back soon, which is, I very much understand that he is, mid to late Jan is the talk there, then you could say at centre half they're not looking too bad, particularly as they manage Canate much better than they used to, and he can seemingly, touch wood, can stay fit consistently. So clearly that's the thinking there, and it's enough to get them through. And I think, barring injuries, it would be. I don't doubt that. Now, I would like to see them sign a centre half personally, just because I think, but I would like it to be the right centre half and an experienced one. And look, if Liverpool say to you, and they would never sit us down and say this, but they say, we can't get Gay now, but we can get him in the summer, and we think he's perfect for what we need. You can also understand, I think, why they would keep the powder dry rather than signing a centre half who would maybe not be as good and isn't as good a fit, they don't think. So that's kind of got, I think if they do hold off on that, they'll have good reasons for it. It's not just because they like annoying supporters or anything like that, or they're stupid. It's, they will have the reasons for it, albeit, I can also totally understand that the calls to sign one. But I think it maybe indicates that Gomez's injury is not too bad of one, and he will be back soon. It maybe indicates that, there's some confidence around a summer target that they think they can get. And also that they believe that, maybe even using Endo there in some games is absolutely fine if needs must. So that will be the thinking. Whether it proves to be right or not, I think a lot rests on where they finish in the league at the end of the day. If they finish in the top 4, then it's absolutely fine. If not, you've got to say, was that a missed opportunity?
And as much as that, and people are going, we need it, and no one's disagreeing. We said we both want to sign a centre half, but we look at the history and the way we've done things, especially under the people who are in charge. All we have to think back to is they are prepared to not do anything, or like a Ben Davis, a Kabak at best, to make sure they could then get Canate in the summer. Unless it fits with their plans, there'll be no emergency or break glass in case, anything like that, will there?
No, because it like we saw with Davis and Kabak, it didn't do anything, did it really? And people were very much like, oh, just sign a centre half. And, seeing shouts in the chat panel there about Ordonez and things like that. Is he ready to just drop in now? Is he really, the age he is he, if you had to play him for 10 Premier League games on the bounce, how would he fare? Do we know that? It's a lot to put on a player who's still young, and I think situations like that, asking a young centre half to come and save your season if Canate gets injured, I think you're on a hiding to nothing there. I think that makes it really difficult. And I think that's how Liverpool would see it, which is why I'm kind of like, if they can sign a centre-half this month, for me, it has to be someone who's plug and play, ready to go, and it is experienced and is a long-term option for them, really. So I'd also push back on the idea as well that Gay won't come if Liverpool don't finish top four. I mean, that hasn't really been the case generally. You think of the signings they've made when they've been in the Europa League and those situations. I think, Alexis McAllister comes for his first season when they're in the Europa League. So does Szoboszlai, so does Gravenberch. Liverpool's a pull, and you can't just, everybody, I have this conversation a lot, but you can't always just think of the upsides with signings. So say you sign a centre half who's maybe third on your list because he's the one you can get this summer. And you're only thinking in your mind then, well, that will get us top four. But what if, because he's you're only your third choice, there are those little doubts about him, and they prove to be true as soon as he gets here, and he proves to be a disastrous signing. So then you're out the Champions League money, and you're also out the money that you spent on that player, and then you can't put together as big a package for Gay. This is how they've got to think. They can't just think about, we sign this player, it gives us all this upside, and then we get in the top four and we make all this money. They've also got to think about the fact that the reality is the opposite can happen. And as supporters, it's very hard for us to sometimes get in that mindset and to think in that way. But that's the reality of it, and that's how they have to think. And so, it's there are downsides or potential downsides there at times.
Yeah, it is hard to see too much being done in January, but the window's not open yet, people. So we'll see what develops with that one. And then Liverpool will play no more in 2025. The first game of the season will be New Year's Day. It's 5:30 at Anfield against Leeds, Leeds were all right the other day. They got a draw, didn't they? And they're unbeaten in 5 as well. But there is no excuse for Liverpool in this. They'll be looking at the run, the players that are back, all those types of things. It's right to expect 3 points against Leeds at home.
Yeah, goodness me, absolutely. As much as Leeds have improved and they're going to be a tougher prospect than they might have been, they're not absolutely out of this world now. And I think they're a side that certainly at Anfield, as you say, Liverpool should be expecting to beat. Of course, the one thing Liverpool could do to really help themselves out is not concede from a set piece, because Leeds are starting to be very good at those, and Liverpool are very, very bad. And you can play as well as you want. You could play Leeds off the park and then find yourself 1 goal down because you just score one from a corner. So just don't concede from set piece. That would be absolutely massive. Hey, even go wild maybe and score one yourselves. That would be crazy, wouldn't it? But I mean, so as much as we talk about the performance, the expectation around that, there's this game within a game that's massively important, and they could really do with keeping a clean sheet from set pieces. If they do that, I think they'll beat Leeds.
You hope so. You really do. And in a way, because it feels like we played Leeds literally 5 minutes ago, wasn't it? Because it was that famous day, the ghost of the 3-3, having been 2-0 up and ending with the draw. Like you said, they get a late set piece, which had that feeling. Obviously, the Salah interview bombshell that developed that day as well. It kind of feels like you just need to win to put the ghost of that day to bed a little bit.
Yeah, and again, the whole set piece thing and how I'm banging on about. I'm like Arne Slot now with this, but I really, really am obsessed with the influence this is having at the moment on confidence and results and everything. Vanquishing that and not doing the crazy penalty that Canate gave away in that game as well, which was absolutely massive. Really show that you've turned a corner, because I think in that run was where, for me, I think it was a really strong case with where Liverpool were up to, where the form was, the weaknesses they were showing, that you could have said in that moment that the manager could have been dismissed. So have they really turned a corner? Let's kind of see replay of that game. Can they do better than conceding 3? Can they play just generally better and looking more balanced, which we're starting to see maybe little bits of? Just keep this run going and keep the wins coming, but also try and play as well as you can in the game, because that's the thing that's going to get Liverpool out of this. It's not just, getting the results over the line, but getting good performances as well, which we saw maybe in the first half against Wolves. Just keep building and building. Just
hopefully it does in that way, and less nervousness in the stadium from everyone would be nice at the same time, fans and players. And in terms of who are you fancying to take the field against Leeds? I mean, Szoboszlai is surely going to come back in. But other than that, and probably I'd think for Chiesa would be the obvious one. Is it hard to see too many changes from there for you in that one?
Yeah, I think you should just kind of keep as settled the team as you really can in a run like this, because Liverpool are starting to play a bit better. We talked about relationships like Wirtz and Ekitike, and Wirtz and Kirkes, and moment what we're seeing in terms of that. So just try and keep it as settled as you possibly can, really, and accounting for the need to maybe rotate certain players and look after them. But also, I mean, there's decent gap between games at the moment. Everybody should be absolutely capable of playing again. And of course, you definitely bring Szoboszlai in, so there's no doubt about that. There's got to be a change in there. But for me, the change there is an obvious one, which is that you take out Alexis McAllister, because he's the midfielder that's arguably in the worst form at the moment. And then the rest maybe just picks itself, because that's the best team Liverpool have got at the moment.
Yeah, you wouldn't be making too many changes. And Leeds kind of maybe feeds into, it's what we've been discussing recently, and I struggle to escape this. We seem to be playing, it's still quite like containment football. Don't give much away, but rely on the individual brilliance probably, or a bit from Ekitike, Wirtz, Frimpong, skinning someone, something like that. That's probably what we're going to see in this one. And maybe it just seems to be the route they've picked forward for us, like it or not, this season.
Yeah, but I think it's only going to go so far. I think this style of football, if they do keep this up and don't start to look to play more a little bit and play, like I say, I thought they did play against Wolves in that first half, and they were playing some expansive stuff. They've got to go and lean towards that eventually, because I think you're going to just basically, the games are going to get harder, and you are going to get beat at some point. And the kind of flaws of playing in this way and being so safe are going to be really, really obvious soon. So they have to start to play more. And, these are opportunities to do it. I think like Wolves at home, Leeds at home, to just get that confidence back into yourself. So I want to see a little bit more football, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it's got to be better than it's been across certain games recently. And it's still mad to me how many games we've analysed, how much we've talked and tried to look for positives at time, but being honest and said it's been dire at others. Is it maybe because people have talked about the quality of the league this season? Is it telling how bad the league has been that we've been as bad as we have at times, and we are 3 points clear in the 4th Champions League spot?
It's absolutely crazy, isn't it? And I get the vibe as well that basically the supporters of every team are absolutely fuming at the moment. And I think part of that is because expectations are getting absolutely muddled with the fact that everybody can beat everybody and nobody's absolutely exceptional. I mean, even Arsenal fans aren't happy at the moment. They're not on a great run. I've seen someone complain in the chat panel about Liverpool wouldn't be as reliant on set pieces if they were better from open play. Well, Arsenal are the same, and they're top of the league. So everybody's having problems. And you look at Chelsea, who were apparently in title contention a few weeks back and now behind Liverpool. Man United are having a great season, I'm told, and they're behind Liverpool. They're having a shocking season. So I think everybody's kind of unhappy at the moment, which just for me, everyone's got a lot of issues around their signings settling in, the injuries that they've had maybe, or, the way that set pieces are dominating how games are transpiring. It's a more competitive league, as someone said there. It's a really, really tough league to consistently win in. And sometimes it's not necessarily about playing well or playing a certain brand of football. It's about just kind of maybe doing a bit of what Liverpool are doing at the moment. It's just limiting the opposition and hoping your quality tells. So, it's been a weird season, a really difficult one. But also I think the fact that so many are flawed around Liverpool should be really helpful for getting them out of this and maybe giving them a top 4 place, because they don't have to be that great to get there.
Nah, it does seem that way. Fingers crossed the others just drift away. And I mean, the top 3 are running clear, and 2nd and 3rd in City and Villa they're flying at the moment in terms of results. Is it a 3-way title race for you, even though we're not in it?
I wouldn't say Aston Villa will sustain this. I mean, people are getting a lot of stick for pointing out online that like their underlying numbers don't look particularly fantastic versus what the actual output is. But that you can make jokes about that and tell people that they're nerds and all these kind of things. It will catch them eventually. It always does. XG always wins in the long term. don't ever doubt it. It always gets there in the end. So I think that's I don't think they will be in it, and I think they've got a poor run probably coming up soon. As great as they are to watch, and I think definitely great contenders for Champions League spot, but I don't think they'll end up in the title conversation.
Nah, same either. But if everyone else could just fall away from the fourth place, that would probably be helpful in terms of everything that's happening at the moment. And we'll finish our last podcast of 2025 with a few questions. Now, you can verify on these. There's the quick fire-ish. They're not like rapid fire, so to speak, but you haven't seen them. I've not put you to you. These are not prepped or ready for you, are they?
No. So I'm very, very worried.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to ask you to put your neck on the line too much, but there's a few things that we do want to ask. Focusing ultimately on the second half of the season to start with, who is going to be Liverpool's best player in the second half of the season, do you think? What's your gut telling you?
I think it'd be Florian Wirtz, to be honest. I think we're starting to see it already. He's becoming kind of the dominant guy in the team, and I think he's going to just start consistently running the show for Liverpool if he stays fit. But yeah, hopefully he does, and I really do think by the end of the season, everyone's going to say this guy's going to be one of the main guys in the Premier League.
Fingers crossed that comes true. I reckon I can guess this, but top scorer in the second half of the season?
Got to back Hugo Ekitike, haven't you, from here, to be honest? I think he's made a really good start, and again, he's adapted now even more so, and it's going to be hard to get him out. He's not really got competition for his place with Isak not being there. Salah's away at AFCON, so I think it's going to be Ekitike, yeah.
I think most will go with those two. Well, fingers crossed they prove true. There's a two-part Mo Salah one now. When Mo Salah comes back from AFCON, is he going to get in the team regularly?
I don't know about regularly. I don't think it's going to be he is going to be a consistent starter, I would say. I think this is kind of, it's going to get to the end of the season and everybody's going to be on the same kind of page about maybe a sale there. So I don't think he's going to be a nailed-on starter, if I'm being honest, because I just don't think you can make the case for him to be at the moment.
Do you think that means as well the chances of Mo Salah seeing out his contract, as in all the way through to not just the summer but beyond? Are we expecting a departing of ways in the summer?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's been baked in now. I think with the fact it got so bad and the fallout was so bad, I think it's all been calmed down. I think he'll come back from AFCON. He'll play his part. But yeah, very, very difficult to see him staying any longer than that, because I think obviously he just wants to play every week and he's not going to get that at Liverpool anymore. And this is the start of moving to a post-Mo Salah world, isn't it?
Does feel that way. It feels, again, that there could be some real changes. And I'll caveat this with, we both said people we want a centre-half. Of course, we would do that. One who's ready, who can go and help in the team now. But based on what you're feeling right now, is it extremely quiet, as in nobody's through the door at the AXA in January?
I'd just be surprised if they didn't. The mood music is very much that they want to get more. They want to see, like I said, about getting more from Wirtz in the second half of the season. See Ekitike kick on whenever Isak is back. Get a bit more out of him as well, and that's kind of been the real focus. I mean, if they're always aware of opportunities coming up, and if somebody starts to sniff around Gay in January and Palace show a willingness to sell, yeah, Liverpool would act. They I think they would like to think that they could get that one over the line if there's a possibility. But if not, we know that they will keep the powder dry. And people's reaction to that, you kind of see it's so kind of visceral, and it's a disgrace if they don't, and this, that, and the other. But like I say, this is why Liverpool tend to get signings right, and it is frustrating. I get that at times, but we are too absolute in our thinking around signings as well, I would say. I mean, everybody was excited about the summer, and it's kind of not, translated into Liverpool being invincible either, as it's, they've got to take a long-term view of signings, and they do, which is why they so frequently get them right. Yeah.
We will say again, we both do a centre-half, as we mentioned about 6 times in this, but we'll see what happens in January. And the final one, because I get with the recent, if you just went pure results, you'd go, well, Arne Slot's turn it around. But you look at the performances as well, don't you? And obviously everything that goes into that. And there was a good analogy or a good tweet someone put out to say, because someone had said, oh, it's all look at the positive, look at the results. And someone said, well, if you cut the chicken but set fire to the kitchen, is it really the result you were looking for? Well, that was a good sort of analogy. And maybe it's not that dramatic, but on the Slot's future, it's hard to be confident about that beyond the summer, isn't it?
Yeah, I still think it's up in the air massively. I think a lot will be decided by how Liverpool finish this season, and that won't just be results, by the way. So, if he just plays like this till the end of the season and the results are the same, I still think Liverpool would have a real think about it, because he would say, well, the underlying performance wasn't at the level we would require, and we don't think, excuse me, you can translate that in the long term to good performances. So, yeah, they're not good. I don't think they're going to be offering a contract between now and the end of the season. And so he'll be a year out come the summer, and it will be looked at then in its totality, which is the back half of last season, the fact there was a bit of a drop off there, the start of this one, the second half of this one. I think he really needs to see improvement if he's to kind of stick around as Liverpool manager. And of course, partly stuff will be decided as well by who's on the managerial market. If Alonso is available, for example, that would make Liverpool think, I'm absolutely sure. But yeah, very, very hard to call which way that one's going to go. And I think Slot needs not just results, but he also needs performances over the second half of the season.
Which Liverpool need, and they need to get a lot better at many things before this season ends to get those Champions League spots. But there we go, people. We won. The results are not bad at the moment, but the underlying bits are question marks. We talked set pieces, we talked Semenyos. We even put a few predictions in the mix for you as well. All it leaves me to say is, for the final time in 2025, for all the answers, for all the insight, David, it is massively appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
And ladies and gents, that was another Media Matters for Anfield Index.